Warning, the following video was created by somebody who, for the sake of this video, has put on his purple glasses. This video shall be filled with a whole lot of hopium. Side effects may include reaching, speaking things into existence, and Super Bowl fever. Viewer discretion is advised. So, Ravens flock, we're sitting here in the midst of our mini bye week. Of course, we played the Bengals on Thursday Night Football a few days ago, so we didn't play this past Sunday, and we won't play again till next week against the Chargers. And then from there, we will have our actual bye week before we start the last leg of the season. So we're only going to really play like one game over the next 3 weeks, which is definitely exciting to get that sort of breather as a team because obviously it's just been so nonstop for us throughout this season, obviously, because we had a late bye week. And this current period is gonna give us a major opportunity to heal up to the best of our abilities. Just really anybody. But in general, I still was thinking about Mark Andrews and the possibility of him coming back and people expect him to come back. Now, I'm not saying he has to force himself to come back early because we desperately need him and he's the only option there. This isn't a situation like the Chiefs where if Travis Kelsey goes out, Patrick Mahomes is pretty much screwed. We're in a situation where this is probably the first year in a while where I felt like we have enough firepower to to withstand a loss this devastating. But even though I think we have enough firepower, I still think that there is a possibility that if we make a deep playoff run, that we could possibly see Mark Andrews come back from in time for the Super Bowl. I know it sounds crazy, but y'all gotta hear me out. Again, anything is possible at this point. But before I get into that, as far as like the replacements for Mark Andrews, I think they'll do just fine. I would hope they would do just fine. I've been a big Isaiah Likely fan. I think he's a really solid pass catching tight end who's, really shifty. He's not the best blocker, but, still Charlie Kolar. I know a lot of Ravens fans, they like Charlie Kolar. And I know he's been talking this offseason about wanting to sort of find his own niche within the tight end room. So he said he was practicing really hard on his blocking. So I'm assuming we're going to see him get some play out there. But nonetheless, none of them can truly replace what Mark Andrews is and what he does as just a complete package for a tight end. And we're in what I consider a very fascinating point in sports history. Right now, Aaron Rodgers is trying to do something that we perceive to be impossible. Keyword is perceive, right? And I got to throw that out there. That's why I put Aaron Rodgers on the thumbnail because Aaron Rodgers suffered a far more catastrophic injury than what Mark has suffered. Aaron Rodgers literally tore his Achilles in September, and he is claiming that he wants to come back and play by mid-December. Again, I think that's unlikely. I think he's kind of teasing the Jets fans or trying to give them hope or something. I doubt that he's gonna do it, but I've always been a fairly open-minded person, so I can't just throw the possibility out the window because things like history gets made all the time. Like things that we once thought were impossible, one day just were proven to be possible by somebody who was just crazy enough to say, why not? Once upon a time, I don't want to get too far off track, but there was a thing that was called like I believe it was called the 4 minute barrier or something like that, where for a very long time, nobody thought it was possible to run a mile in under 4 minutes until one person did it. And then next thing you know, everybody and their mama can run a 4 minute mile. So I'm just trying to make the point that many things that we once thought weren't possible, hey, all it takes is one person who seems crazy to just push the limits. Next thing you know, we have a new standard. And in the case of Aaron Rodgers, he's suffering from an injury that we think would take a year, a year or two to fully come back from and get back to being your normal self, and he's trying to return in 3 months. That would be if he did that, and if he was successful at it, like actually played well and won games, like this would be unprecedented territory. But this stuff does happen all the time. Like a lot of the injuries people suffer from now in sports, 20, 30 years ago, these were the type of injuries that really would end people's careers. But now, as time went on and as medicine and technology has continued to improve and evolve, many injuries end up being the type of things that really are minor for a lot of these athletes. These are things that they end up bouncing back from relatively quickly compared to what happened to them 30 years ago. So that it plays a big role in why in the back of my mind there's a part of my gut that somehow is telling me that Mark Andrews could make a return with like when we make a deep playoff run. And obviously I'm assuming we're making a deep playoff run because I do believe this is truly a year where the the despite the doubts the slight doubts that I may have in certain parts of the team, or despite the flaws we may have or the hiccups we may have had when it comes to blowing leads, I still clearly believe that this is a Super Bowl caliber team. I really don't see one team in the NFL that could really stop us. And because of that, I do believe this is a year where everybody, including a silent leader like Mark Andrews, would be willing to put everything on the line. Now, I'm not saying he should rush back, obviously, but what I'm saying is you never know. Miracles can happen, or what we perceive to be a miracle can happen. A new standard could be set. I think that's a better way to say it. A new standard could be set. Obviously, as we know, during the Bengals game, Logan Wilson, he did what I thought was what many people, including myself, thought was a dirty tackle, where he did a hip drop on Mark Andrews the back of his leg, which caused Mark to stay down. He was hurt, and now we're finding out that he suffered from a cracked fibula, and like there's like some like what's believed to be like torn ligaments in his ankle, which, even though that's obviously serious, I don't think that's 100% clear of what he's dealing with or what is the timeline for injury. And I also believe that it could have been way worse, obviously, because to me, part of what's given me the hope to reach like this is the fact that there have yet to been any reports of him needing a major surgery or him actually breaking anything. Like we're not hearing about a clean break. We're just hearing about some tears and some cracks, which is obviously serious, but something that I do believe does leave a room for hope, especially when you hear John Harbaugh since that game. Whenever he mentions Mark Andrews in the situation, he keeps saying that Mark is likely to miss the rest of the season. He keeps using the word likely. Now, John, whenever it comes to situations like this, John is usually very vague. He's usually very unclear about the situation. Like he usually doesn't tell you the person's out for the year. He usually just says, "Oh, we're taking it day by day." And then ironically, those will be the people that are out for the year. He did that with Lamar. He did that a couple years ago with Ronnie Stanley, and a couple people. Like he kept making it seem like it was day by day, and next thing you know, they're out for the year. So for him to say Mark is likely to miss the end of the season, he didn't say it like it was 100% definite, and he also didn't. He also, for whatever reason, he also did the opposite of what him and his character normally do, which is give no details or give unclear details. This time, it seems as though he gave a lot of details, which on one hand could be just him, just being blunt. Or on the other hand, it could be him choosing his words like him choosing his words wisely and wanting to throw people off and not set people's expectations too high, but then knowing that there's a chance that things could go in the right direction, and Mark Andrews could possibly shock the world and they could just catch a team off guard later in the playoffs when just out the blue, Mark Andrews just makes a unexpected return. Part of what's making me hopeful of the fact that Mark could come back early is the fact that when he got hurt, he was able to walk off the field on his own. Now, from what I've heard, once he actually got to the back, he needed some help, like being like carried or like walking. But nonetheless, still him being able to walk off the field on his own, I do believe that there is hope that while the injury is serious, he still has enough strength necessary to really to just function, obviously. Because again, if any of you have ever had an ankle injury, like if it's actually broken, if something's actually broken, you can't stand up. Like it's just not, you can't stand up, you can't put weight on it. It's just not, it's not going to be possible unless you're just like a superhero or just somebody with a insanely high pain threshold, which maybe Mark has that, I don't know. But I think part of it is while the injury is serious, it's not serious to the point where Mark couldn't push himself to make a comeback. Also, now that we got more information about Mark Andrews' fibula and his ankle ligament situation, Mark, not the team, but Mark himself is seeking a second opinion. Apparently, they're going to a doctor out in like the Charlotte area, which is I thought was very interesting that Mark is going through this much trouble for a second opinion, which to me gives me the impression that Mark himself believes that his body can definitely bounce back a lot quicker than people think it can bounce back, right? Because of course, even though doctors are smart and they've done a lot of studying, they don't know everything and they don't know you, the individual. So I do believe Mark seeking a second opinion is him having a moment of feeling like, hey, my leg feels a lot better than people realize it does. It's still, it still hurts, it's still injured, but I don't feel as though I would actually need to be out that long. Now, Mark has been a pretty durable player throughout his career for the most part. He's been hurt here and there. He's had some hiccups here and there, but in general, he's been a pretty durable player. So that could also play a role in why he believes that he can come back and he's seeking another opinion. And also, obviously, Mark is just a tough person. So he also probably feels like even if he's at like 80%, he probably could still come back and contribute to the team in any way he can. And I've done some research on what they're claiming his injury is, his injuries, what they are. And while I don't know a whole lot about these injuries, from what I'm seeing, like as far as like the ankle issues he's dealing with, again, it's not guaranteed, but there is a possibility that something like that could heal within, a few weeks. So I don't think the ankle issue is as serious as the fibula. Well, I mean, well, they're both serious, but I just mean compared, like the ankle compared to the fibula may not be as serious. So that may he in his mind he may be feeling like, oh, okay, that could take a few weeks, then I'll be ready to go on that end. And then when it comes to the fibula, from what I'm seeing, it's saying that it is possible, not guaranteed, but it is possible for this type of injury to be healed within 12 to 16 weeks. Like 12 to 16 weeks. And that's depending on if it was, actually broken. Like in the case of Mark, we've yet to hear any reports saying that something was actually broken. We're hearing about tears and cracks, which are still serious, but not serious enough to where it completely shuts the door on him coming back, at least in my opinion. Like from what I'm seeing, this type of fibula injury, it is possible to come back within 12 to 16 weeks. That's about roughly 3 months, 3 to 4 months. The Super Bowl is on February 11th, which will be 12 and a half weeks removed from the Bengals game on Thursday night that we played where Mark hurt himself. So again, while it's not a guarantee, there's something in the pit of my stomach telling me that Mark Andrews will make a return in the playoffs, especially if we make a deep run for the Super Bowl. And while I'm not saying he should rush, based on what we've heard so far about his injury And based on the little bit of research that I did, it doesn't seem impossible for him to come back in a reasonable amount of time and still be able to be healed or mostly healed and play in the Super Bowl. Now, some people may say, what's the point of even thinking this far into it? And while I understand, it's still the principle of it, because obviously Mark was one touchdown away from tying Todd Heap's franchise record for touchdown. So that's definitely gonna suck that he's gonna have to wait all the way till next year to break that record. But even beyond that, it's just the fact that after all Lamar and Mark Andrews have been through on this team and the ride they've have to had to go on over the past 6 years, the ups and downs with each other, not with each other, but the ups and downs that they went through on this team, being teammates on this team through the highs and the lows. It's not gonna feel right to see a Super Bowl win without Mark Andrews catching a touchdown. That's just me. That's just how I feel about it. It just wouldn't feel right. Like that's like that. It feels like we would be robbed of an iconic moment to see one of the greatest quarterback and tight end duos of the past 20 years or possibly ever, to see them in the Super Bowl as the greatest tag team or one of the greatest tag teams we've ever seen. It seems as though we would miss out on a big opportunity to see that, and it would definitely be a shame. So again, I can't say for a fact that they're coming back. I mean that Mark's coming back. But after all that we've been through on this team, after the journey that Lamar and Mark have gone through, they've really been the only consistents within each other's careers at this point. So it would only feel right to see Mark Andrews in the Super Bowl, even if he wasn't 100%. Now, again, I'm not saying he should rush, but considering how tough Mark is and considering what's on the line this year, we can't be shocked if somehow Mark pushes himself beyond what people think is his limit and manages to heal up in time to be in that Super Bowl and to be there when we're holding up that trophy. But again, this was a lot longer than I expected the video to be. Let me know what your thoughts are, and let me know, do you think it is too unrealistic for Marks to make a comeback on the Super Bowl in the Super Bowl, or do you think that there's still a decent amount of hope in the air that would make you feel like Mark could actually be back?